This is the new for 2025 Honda CUV-E, and I think it's a really important bike. You see, Honda have set a goal to be carbon neutral by 2050, with 10 battery-powered two-wheelers by 2025 this year, and an aim to sell 1 million a year by just 2027. So clearly, this is the direction of travel, but what's it actually like to ride? Well, today, I'm here on the European press launch in Oxford to take it for a spin to find out.
Now look, if you were hoping for a super powerful bike here, then you might be disappointed because the motor, which is swing arm mounted, makes 6 kilowatts, which is about the same as 8 horsepower. So in the standard riding mode, that means it's about equivalent to a 110cc scooter. And so yeah, it's not exactly going to give you face melting levels of acceleration, but then that's not really the point. You see, this bike is powered by these Honda's MPPs, or mobile power packs, which are basically removable batteries. These simply slide out and then you can stick them in a docking station inside your house. And so it makes for super convenient charging if you live in a flat, for example, because you can just take them upstairs and you don't have to run a power cable over the pavement or out the window. Now, Honda told us quite a bit about these MPPs in the press briefing the night before the ride, and so if you're at all concerned about them and their reliability, well, it might be reassuring to know that they're not new for the CUV-E, but have been used in other models internationally for some time now. On top of that, they use them in construction applications and power banks. And not only are they tested for being waterproof, dustproof, and vibration and drop resistant, but they're also covered by Honda's recently announced standard 6-year warranty. They've even started making them available in public docking stations in some countries, so you can just swap and go, and they're also testing them at the moment in Europe too.
One of the key design decisions with these, though, has to be how portable they are. And that's where they've probably had to compromise a bit on range and capacity. You've got to be able to take them out and carry them. And at about 10 kilos each, you know, they're still fairly hefty. I do think, though, for most people, it will be doable. But clearly, if they'd given it way more range, way more capacity, more power as well, then you wouldn't want to be lugging 2 15 or 20 kilo batteries up some stairs.
I guess the question is then, well, have they got that balance right? I mean, 8 horsepower doesn't really sound like much, but I will say, being an electric, it's got plenty of torque from a standstill, so it is quick enough away from the lights. And if you do want to pick up the pace, then it does have a sport riding mode, which they say is more so equivalent to like a 125cc scooter. So, you know, peppy stuff. On top of that, they do say they've tested it for steep inclines as well. Of course, if you're riding in town, you might come across the odd, you know, fairly challenging hill, or if you're trying to ascend a particularly lofty multi-story car park. But yeah, they do say they've tested it for that, and it's got enough guts, even if it is 2 up and with a little bit of luggage on the back. As for top speed on the flat, well, Honda claim 83 kilometers per hour, which is about 52 miles per hour. But when we got out the city, in a bit of a narrow tuck admittedly, well, I topped out at 59 on the dash. So you can venture out of town a bit, although you'll still probably want to avoid A roads and beyond.
Now, as for range, with a mix of city riding in the standard mode, when you're riding fairly sensibly, they're saying about 44 miles, which might not sound like a lot, but I think if you know your commute every day and you know you can make it home to charge overnight, then for a lot of people it will be enough. And the convenience of being able to take the batteries out and charge them in your flat is probably going to outweigh the lack of spontaneity, let's say, that you'll get from this particular setup.
I guess that brings me on to what this bike is not for, which is being able to zip around here, there and everywhere and just charge up wherever you can. You see, there's no way to fast charge, there's no way to plug into the mains, and so you'd basically have to take your dock with you, which simply isn't practical. Now, you can buy extra docks through a Honda dealer, so perhaps you could leave one at the office, for example, for a bit more range, but ultimately, for the impulsive, or the explorer, or the aimless wanderer, this bike probably is not. So yeah, I think that's the big thing with this bike. You have to be on a fixed route, but if that is the case, then it really is quite a pleasant little thing to ride around on. 120 kilograms is all it weighs, so it's a real doddle in terms of handling and maneuvering it about. And while the front brake with its single pot isn't particularly powerful, well, your rear brake lever gives you the drum brake at the back at the same time. It's linked braking or combined braking, and there's plenty of stopping power if you use this left-hand lever. Suspension as well, you know, it's fairly basic, but they say they've tuned it to give some of the riding feel of their, you know, established ICE scooters. And so yeah, it's an agile little bike, not super stable once you start getting up to like 50 miles per hour and maybe a little bit beyond. But yeah, for the town work, which it was realistically mainly designed for, well, it's an absolute doddle to ride.
I think as well as being easy to get on with out on the road, it's also very practical and convenient and comfortable. And of course, that's no accident. They filled it with features to make it a very easy bike to live with. The seat height, for example, comes in at 760 mils, so it's very easy to manage. They fitted it as well with a reverse mode to make it a little bit easier to park if you're on an incline or something like that. It'll do 3 kilometers per hour backwards. Of course, you can't park it in gear, so they've actually fitted it with a parking brake over on the left-hand lever there. And they tell us in the briefing last night that in terms of the visuals, it's the same designer that worked on this bike as the latest generation Fireblade. One of the considerations here was trying to make it look nice and visible despite being a fairly modestly sized bike. And so that's one of the reasons why you've got these big wide running lights, both front and rear, to make it stand out on the road. Then we've got a neat little phone stash here where you can plug it in as well. There's a charging port, a hook for your shopping bag, and this rear rack is actually standard fit too. Perhaps they've done that to sort of quash any complaints of not having storage under the seat, but you could fit either a top box or of course you could use some bungees to strap your own bag down.
In the cockpit, it's nicely thought out too, with a lovely big 7-inch dash that has some connectivity features built in. There is also a cheaper version of this bike with a 5-incher and no connectivity, but apparently we won't be getting that one at the moment anyway in the UK. Regardless, I'm really liking the way that the new dash is designed, with different graphics and fonts to the usual Honda stuff, and to me it feels a bit more premium and well designed. I wish they used it on all their bikes, to be honest. But as for the connectivity features, well, I'd typically prefer to mount my phone on the bars, as the built-in stuff generally isn't as good as a proper dedicated navigation app. But I will admit, this one has one particularly handy feature, which is that it can tell you how much charge you'll need to get to a specific destination, so you can cross-check it against your battery level.
So lots to like about this bike. It's very well thought out in terms of doing a very specific job, but as always, the all-important context is the price, and it comes in very competitive as well at £3,800 here in the UK, with bikes available in dealers from September. Now, do I see it as a replacement for the thrill that us bikers get from internal combustion engine powered bikes? Absolutely not, and Honda know that as well because they're still making plenty of those. But do I see it as a good option if you want something cheap to run into town with? And do I see it as a good option if you want to dodge some of the emissions charges, which are becoming more and more commonplace in cities across Europe? Well, in both of those cases, absolutely yes. And stick it in sport mode and you can still have a little bit of fun while you're doing it too.
As always though, I'd love to know what you think of the bike, so do let me know down in the comments below, and whether you consider one for the short urban commute. We also recently published a comparison of an electric bike and a petrol bike for this sort of riding, and so I'll put that on the screen now in case you missed it and fancy catching up. Do hit subscribe if you want more of the latest motorcycle news and reviews right here on MOTOBOB. A massive thanks for watching today, and we'll catch you in the next video.